Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, in which we take a light-hearted look at a serious subject. Every 2 weeks we look back through the stories of true crime to find an event that took place on this week in history. I'm your host Mark Decano, and with me as always are my friends Jed Lester.
Hello.
And Rue Turner.
Hello.
Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you can, and if you can't, you can always email us to stuff@truecrimediary.co.uk. And in appreciation of every 5-star review, we'll give you a shout out on a future episode. I've had an email here from Javier. He's made a couple of observations. The Shark's Arm episode, He asks how big was the arm. By that I mean, did Jimmy Smith become a lightweight boxer before or after the severing?
That's true. Good point.
I'm assuming that he was lightweight beforehand. Afterwards he would have been featherweight, I assume.
Yeah, equally, he would have... You know what boxers are like with their nicknames. There's no way that would have gone past in Jimmy... What was his name? Jimmy One-Armed Smith. They would have utilised his appearance, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one-armed boxer. That would have been quite the novelty.
Well, there's I've forgotten the name of the thrash band now, but there's a one-armed drummer who's
Def
Leppard, one of the best drummers in the world.
Yeah, Def Leppard.
Well, you say that. The best one-armed drummers in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
He goes on.
Oh yeah.
He then refers to the H.H. Holmes episode, and he expresses his concern for you, Rue.
Oh, that's sweet. That's very kind.
Yeah. He said he's a touch concern that when you stated it's very tricky to burn bones in a fireplace, even children's bones.
God. See, when someone else writes in to point that out, it then, strangely enough, sounds very sinister.
Yes, yeah. He does suggest that it's the kind of statement that someone is reserved for the authority of people who've tried.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough.
Well, yeah.
It is
They are
enough.
easier to grind up afterwards, though. The children's bones break down under a hammer much easier.
Again, hammering the nail.
And indeed, the bones. He does end on a final point, which quite rightly he suggests that Holmes's murder castle, we were talking about the name of it, he suggests the Killer Villa.
Yeah,
oh, that's not bad.
So I'm annoyed by that.
Pretty good.
Because
you didn't think of it.
Well, I did say it. I'm going to argue my corner. And I know no one's
just because
saying
the two words may have left your mouth on the same day doesn't mean you can strike a claim to having said the phrase.
I know no one's complaining that I didn't say it, but come up with that. But I did it. I did say it. I said something like killer something. I put a word in between. I can't remember what I said, but I'm still annoyed that I didn't say the phrase killer villa.
Insert rewind sound and edit here.
Yeah. But I was
I'll just go back and republish.
I was mainly annoyed by the hotel's PR and marketing company who were just not good enough, and Murder Castle is pathetic. Get rid of them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Rescind the contract.
Murder Castle is a feature, a caravan park.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a water slide.
Yeah. Speaking of that, thanks very much for your letter, Javier. I reckon we're dangerously close to needing a jingle.
Really?
Yeah, to do with letters.
A letters jingle?
Yeah. Oh. I think that's needed.
Should it be a jolly jingle or a...
Yeah, well, I don't see why it would be.
Is that in keeping with our brand? Do we have a brand?
No, we don't. I think a jingle is our next step.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants to write a jingle and send it in, great. I'll take that under advisement for a year from now when we get our next team out. So the date we're looking at this week is the 4th of June, and in 1889, 3 young boys playing under the Albert Bridge on the Thames near Battersea caught sight of an object lapping against the embankment and were horrified to discover human body parts. They brought it to Scotland Yard, where it determined it had been in the water for 24 hours at most, and it was the first of a list of parts that turned up on the river.
Let me guess in the list. I'm thinking a couple of arms.
You'd hope a couple.
more than one leg?
Which is anything like the shark arm case. There's 3 arms.
And somebody wrote this list afterwards, I'm hoping, and not like a shopping list of body parts they hope to find.
It was a checklist. It goes, arm, tick. 7 days later, the London Times reported as follows. Tuesday, left leg and thigh off Battersea. Lower part of abdomen at Horsley Down. Thursday, liver near 9 Elms. Upper part of the body in Battersea Park. Neck and shoulders off Battersea. Friday, right foot and part of leg at Wandsworth. Left leg and foot at Limehouse. Saturday, left arm and hand at Bankside. Buttocks and pelvis off Battersea. Right thigh at Chelsea Embankment yesterday. Right arm and hand at Bankside.
Oh yeah, that was a good night.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that made up one person?
That was one person.
That's an extensive dismemberment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To separate the buttocks.
Oh, well, one buttock.
One
was
buttock.
found. Oh no, 2 buttocks.
The only thing I'd say is that didn't that happen quite a lot? Just stuff washing up of a horrible nature.
More than you might expect, to be honest.
Arm, elbow, knee, nose.
But all that big list that you said in an official style accent, that made up a person, did it?
That was a person. That was a particular individual. She was a woman. She was 24 years of age from County Cork in Ireland.
Yep.
She was approximately 8 months pregnant.
Oh,
you did.
And her name was Elizabeth Jackson, although her head was never found.
Wow.
She was identified. She was a homeless prostitute living in Chelsea.
How would you be
is that
identified?
A homeless prostitute in the sense that she was a homeless prostitute, or is that homeless prostitute in the sense that she was a perfectly average woman living in London, just simply described by police?
Well, yeah, you raise a fair point, but in actual fact, she was called a homeless prostitute because she was a sex worker who had no fixed abode.
Fair enough.
Okay. And how do you think they would have found who it was? That was Elizabeth?
There was an inquest, and they...
Despite having no head?
Yeah, I did have that.
Well, you've got it.
You've
got the head?
Yeah. Yes.
In the fridge?
Yes, of course. I've heard the same rumor myself.
There was a childhood scar on her wrist.
Okay.
The pregnancy narrowed it down.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a garment found wrapped around one of the body parts. All of these little
added up
helped to identify.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. In a particularly ironic or perhaps deliberate twist, Elizabeth's right thigh had been thrown over the wall of the estate owned by Percy and Mary Shelley, who of course wrote Frankenstein.
Oh wow!
I think that was accidental.
That gives me an idea.
Oh, I have my story. You amazing puppet shits.
Yeah. Well, I think she'd already had. I think the reason they had the estate is because she'd already written the book.
Oh right. Oh, okay.
It might have been a nice.
It was a homage
thing. Yeah. Here's fun. I know someone who likes talking about body parts. Here's one for you.
Oi, Mary, here's a thigh.
Have a load of this.
A thigh.
A thigh.
If you found a thigh in the river, would you know it's a thigh? I would say no.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Would you?
A thigh.
Well, you would, obviously. We know you would.
I wouldn't know it was a thigh. I say, oh my god, look at that thigh.
You have beautiful thighs.
Because you'd know it was part of a body, and it certainly would be fairly meaty for somebody's forearm or for their upper arm. It's either going to be a really weird looking lamb leg.
Well, my point is, did they mix it? Was it the other buttock? Is my point.
Because was buttock attached?
It's the same. You said. Did you say only one buttock?
Pre or post buttock?
Only one buttock was found. Is that what you said?
No. Well, the buttocks were found. This is a sentence I never thought I'd say. The buttocks were intact for the most part.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I thought one buttock was found in Battersea, and the other.
One buttock is very much like another.
Well, I know. I would argue it's very like a thigh.
They're very much companion items, aren't they?
Yeah, like gloves. Yeah. You know,
you have a left and a right.
you need the bare.
If you've got two left buttocks, it's all going wrong.
Everything's uneven. You're walking in circles. It's crazy.
Who's the man with three buttocks? Why is that coming to my head? It's a man.
That's a Monty Python
yes,
sketch.
right, okay. A man with three buttocks. There you go. Could have been him. But it wasn't.
Could have
It
been
was
it.
Elizabeth Jackson. Is that what you said?
I did say that. Elizabeth Jackson.
So who found the pieces?
Kids.
Children.
Yeah, the first part was found by 3 kids playing on the riverside.
Yes, it couldn't have been all them. Otherwise, that would have been very suspicious.
That draws to memory a story which one of the other members of this podcast might like to tell.
What?
Jed, don't you have a story about finding a body?
Yeah, I found a body in the Thames.
Really?
No,
In 1889?
it was, did you know about that, Mark?
I don't think so.
This one was all together, wasn't it?
It was the Altogether. Yeah, I did find a body in the Thames when I was about 13 or something at Richmond Lock. And I must have mentioned this to you because I was a hit at school for about three days.
3 days.
Yeah, I probably less than
Then
that,
they moved on to the next body that turned up.
No, they moved on to the next cool occurrence because I was deemed cool. Because
the next cool thing. So,
yeah,
like The Empire Strikes Back coming out or something like that.
Yeah, or I don't know, the new whatever.
Stevie found a porn mag under
scale,
a bush.
Yeah, porn back on a railway siding.
Scale electrics or something.
Yeah.
But the
right.
I was coming back from the swimming pool with my friends, 2 friends, Spencer and David, and we were walking over Richmond Lock, which is in southwest London. And I vividly remember it to this day. I remember pointing to the water and saying, "Oh, look, someone's chucked a load of clothes in the water." And they were like, "Oh yeah, look, some clothes." And then I said, "Hang on, there's a body in those clothes." And anyway, there was. It was kind of facing down and floating and stuff. Some river police are stationed in Richmond. We got them over and they dragged it out because at the time we obviously didn't know what gender, but we were convinced it was a bloke. And it got dragged out onto this kind of bit of concrete near the water side, and we were still up high on the bridge looking directly down onto it, had a perfect view. And apart from the fact that we weren't allowed anywhere near the dead body, not that we wanted to go there, and it was kind of dragged out by the scruff of its collar kind of on its front, and we were going, "Oh, blimey, look at that." And then by the police, sorry. And then it got absolutely directly below us, and then it got turned over onto its back, and as the police officer turned it over, it obviously turned over and looked directly up and looked directly at us, and to a man or to a boy, we all screamed like Shea Stadium Beatles fans. Wish this was visual because I could do an impression of it, but it literally went. I've just done the impression, everyone, and literally looked us in the eye, and we all went, "Ah!" And then, obviously, we didn't mention that at school, but we then went back home to my house. And I remember Spencer was telling everyone on the way, just random members of the public, were just going, "You never guess what? We've just found a dead body," and these people are going, right, okay, and carrying on walking, obviously. Yeah. Anyway, and then it got round at school, and for about, as I say, for about, it probably wasn't 3 days, it was probably a day, we were deemed cool, and these kind of like hard kids were coming up to and going, "Are you the bloke who found the dead body?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was." And he'd like, "Yeah, good on you." And he'd like, he'd like kind of
fist
punch my shoulder in a tap my shoulder in a we're mates kind of way, and that lasted for about a day when I was back to normal, so to speak. Yeah. And then I've been dining out on the tail for whatever it is, 30 plus years.
8 minutes.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, I thought it was a very lovely story, and you tell it so well, with such enthusiasm.
But I'd just like to say hopefully I'm not a suspect, is what for the murders you're about to elaborate on.
No, quite right.
I've never done nothing.
I found a body.
Did you? Okay.
But I saw the police pulling a body out of the River Crane, which is
in
the village here.
Yep.
Yeah, I would have probably been about 10, 11.
Oh, actually, I forgot to say it turns out in the local, because we didn't know any details.
Yeah.
So in the local paper the next week, it turns out it was a woman basically.
Right.
We thought it was a bloke because obviously being in the river for quite a while probably evens things out. But the only thing I remember very clearly is that she was absolutely the whitest of white. You know, a white sheet colour, like really ghostly. Anyway, and that's why we screamed when she looked at us.
She stared into your face. I don't know that she looked at you. Her eyes pointed in your
direction.
direction.
She did. She absolutely looked at me. Now, she might have pointed. No, she didn't. Jill, get him. So anyway, yes, they hauled someone out of the crane, did they?
Hauled them out, done it over man and woman, and I was there, age 10 or 11, just went, and then I went home.
Interesting.
Rue, on the other hand, probably put a body in the river.
I have no comments to make on the location of any bodies.
You ever been near the river crane?
Or their thighs.
Or their thighs.
But should you need to get rid of one,
I know someone. Anyway, back to the scattered body parts.
Well, so Elizabeth Jackson was the only one identified out of a group. She wasn't the only one.
Okay. So there were loads more parts, but she was pieced together to be something.
No, there were more bodies, and the bodies, there were 4. She was the third of 4 that are considered the official Thames Torso Murders.
Right. So that's what we're... Thames Torso. Right, okay.
Yes. Now, the first turned up in the Thames near Rainham, East London, in May of 1887, the previous year. And again, several weeks, body parts washed up on the shore of the Thames.
What a disgusting, dirty river.
It's industrial waste, that.
Again, the head wasn't found. The only thing they could work out was it was a woman. They couldn't even determine cause of death. And the only description put on record was that the victim was, inverted commas, found dead. That's it.
Naturally.
Found dead.
I still think it would have been a very, very, very common occurrence. Not necessarily in bits, but bodies. I mean, let's face it, further down the river towards the mouth, an entire town was named after where the bodies used to wash up. At Gravesend, but
yes,
that's not that, is it? It's bits.
It's all of these bodies were effectively dissected. They were cut up. In fact, one of the coroners involved, Dr. Braxton Hicks, in the case of Elizabeth Jackson, he said the body had been dismembered, but the skill was not medical. It was more like that of a butcher or a knacker.
The torso has been severed in mid-thorax.
I was going to ask that. Yeah, what sort of was it? Yeah,
so it wasn't
chopped up or dismembered.
Yeah, it wasn't dissected so much as
taken apart.
Yeah.
Was he was that was Dr. Braxton Hicks, was it?
Braxton Hicks.
Because that's a famous phrase.
Yeah, I was looking for that.
A Braxton Hicks, but it's to do with pregnancy. I wonder if there's. We could probably actually find this out instead of speculate. But a Braxton Hicks is, or moment or whatever, is where you think you're having your baby, but it turns out you're not. But that's got nothing to do with a specialist.
It's called
dissecting.
It's to do with false labour. It's where you get contractions that aren't to do with the. So it's called Braxton Hicks.
So therefore, he must have. I don't think he invented it, but he. I mean, it's named after him, so he clearly found out that it was a thing.
Yeah.
He just did a bit of dissecting on the side.
Yeah. Officially he was the coroner, but obviously he had medical training elsewhere. I haven't got his history. Yes, Braxton Hicks. A second body turned up, and it became known in isolation as the Whitehall mystery. Now, this was in September the 11th in 1880.
Whitehall or Whitehall?
Whitehall.
As in Whitehall in London.
One word, Whitehall. Yes. In London.
Okay.
This is all to do with the same sort of area. So this is September 11th, 1888. So there's quite a gap between the first and second. And this was on the Thames Embankment near Pimlico.
ironically not near Whitehall.
Yes. Now,
Mainly because that's the road.
yeah. But now, bear in mind when this is. This is September 11th, 1888. Okay.
Yep.
So on August 31st and September 8th, Polly Nichols and Annie Chapman have just been butchered on the streets of
Have they really?
East London. Yeah.
Which is the apparent Jack the Ripper
Those
victims.
are Ripper victims, yeah.
Yep.
So in September 11th, when a right arm and shoulder turn up on the embankment.
I mean, you're going to put two and two together, really, aren't you?
Exactly. People start to think that this is possibly connected.
Our friend is back.
But the double event, which is the Ripper crime where he killed two in one evening, hasn't happened yet. So that's the point at which the Ripper murders, everyone loses their mind, you know.
Sure, yeah.
So this is
just one of the characteristic aspects of a Ripper murder is that it's quite surgical in its quality.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they say he would have had an anatomical knowledge, but again, some of the cuts were quite frenzied and vicious.
Okay.
So some of them are quite jagged. So it's anatomical knowledge, but not necessarily medical precision.
Right. Okay. So it doesn't exclude him in that sense, then.
Doesn't exclude him. No.
Could it have been, or was it put down to, you always mentioned copycat people?
Yeah.
Could it have been someone who's going, I'm going to do a River version of what he's done?
Well,
they'll call me the River Ripper.
It's not an impossible idea, certainly.
Jack the Rip Tide. But I mean, the obvious thing to frankly jump to conclusions to is the fact that it's another victim of Jack, basically, isn't it? But
yeah. Well, the first conclusion that everyone jumped to was it was a medical student playing a prank.
Oh, ha ha.
Well, because weirdly, that was the go-to when you found a body part, apparently, at the time. You found an arm or something to go, those
bloody
medical students. Bloody students.
Oh, right.
Bloody students, isn't it? Leaving cadaver pieces lying around.
They think it's a joke. Well, it isn't a joke. I know what a joke is, and this isn't it.
We think finding a traffic cone on your fence at the end of the road is trouble.
Yeah, it's the precursor of the traffic cone prank.
Never had to deal with somebody's leg in your garden.
Yeah.
So previously dead things that were going to be studied upon were then used for hilarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Oh, okay.
So that was the first to go to, and then there was the Ripper connection because of the time.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
But I think that this one was connected to the previous one because of one thing, which is that because this was the right arm and shoulder were found, and then a few days later another arm was found lying by the side of the road, and a few days after that a torso was found by a construction worker who had been dumped near Whitehall, Westminster. But what made me connect this to the other one was that the construction project was for New Scotland Yard. They were building a police station.
Oh, wow.
And I think that
that's interesting.
When they dumped the torso, they thought, hello, here's one. Shelley gets her thigh. The coppers can have a torso.
Yeah.
The funniest joke in the world.
Wow. It's quite sinister, isn't it?
Well, it's very sinister, isn't it?
Hilarious.
Yeah. Again, this victim was a 24-year-old, but they couldn't tell too much else about it. We couldn't find the cause of death.
Right, no identification.
No. So we've got two unidentified bodies, and then
how do they know her age then? We don't know anything about her. We don't know her name. We haven't got the head. But by the way, she was 24.
Yeah, you can age a skeleton.
You can age. Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah. You don't. Only the bones alone will tell you that.
Yeah.
Even then, they knew that much. It just didn't have a wallet on it, you know.
So we
That's
don't
pass.
Other than the mutilation, there's no pattern here. Well, I suppose gender. Are they all women?
They're all women. Yeah,
they're all women, and we don't know if they're all sex workers because we don't know the identity of them.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay.
But we've had two that have had an interesting, morbid joke attached to them, possibly deliberately or not.
Right.
Unidentified, about 24 years old, and then Elizabeth Jackson, who we've mentioned, and then there was a fourth one, which is called the Pinchin Street Torso. This is Whitechapel.
Pinchin. Yep.
Now this is September 1889, so this is a year later.
A year later, yeah.
And a police officer found a woman's torso under the railway arches in Whitechapel. Arms were still attached, no legs or head. They never found the legs or the head.
Yep. Why would that be connected to Thames Torso?
Because it was a torso.
But it wasn't in the Thames.
No, it was under the railway arch, no. But it's considered one of the 4 canonical Thames Torso murders.
Okay, right.
Despite not being in the Thames.
And found under a railway arch. It's the Thames Torso.
Of the 3 options, Thames Torso Murders.
And not having been fully dismembered.
It's definitely a torso, it's definitely a murder. So let's put that in the same folder.
Right, okay.
And they never identified the body or the cause of death.
Arguably, all bodies have a torso. Otherwise, they're just limbs.
But generally, the whole body turns up, not just the torso, or with a bit of attached limb.
So we're talking like a bit of rectangular meat.
Yeah.
Because we're talking no arms down to the pelvis.
Yeah. In medical parlance, a bit of rectangular meat.
I would say it's like a pillow of meat.
Well, I'm not coming to bed with you again.
I mean? It's that size. It's a
size
pillow.
and shape.
Yeah. It's like you go to your butcher's and you say, "Have you got
a pillow of meat?"
Doing something at the weekend. What you say? Yeah, I've got a pillow of meat. That's about the size. I'm holding up a pillow now.
Yeah, I you didn't need to show me a pillow to illustrate what you.
No, I do. I do need to show you a pillow because that's almost perfect.
Yeah. The
pillow murders. The pillow murders are better.
Yeah. It doesn't sound so threatening. The pillow murders. It sounds like you suffocated someone.
It sounds quite nice. Does anyone want to see a pillow again?
Thanks.
So you need a reference.
In that short period of time, it'd gone completely out of my mind.
It's fine. It's here.
Perfect.
Anytime you need to see it, I'll hold it up again.
Those aren't pillows.
So the Torso Murders, there's 4. I mean, as you rightly say, the 4th one wasn't in the Thames, but it's been tied in with the others because obviously they thought that one or more might be linked to the Jack the Ripper killings. But pathologists and police, in reviewing it, sort of thought, well, maybe it's a Ripper case, maybe it's more likely part of the Torso Murders. Does it link in with the Whitehall mystery, etc.? So there's a lot of to and fro. So what you actually have is you have what's called the Thames Torso Mysteries is actually those 4, the canonical 4, which we've mentioned. But likewise, you also have the canonical 5 Ripper killings. Now, all the Ripper killings and one of the Torso Mysteries are included in what's known as the Whitechapel Murders. That was all in 1888, and there are 11 of them.
Right, gosh.
There's actually...
So there's a crossover?
There's crossover, yeah.
But that's to do with geography?
To do with geography, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So all
time.
Yeah.
And murders.
Yeah. Most, if not all, of the Whitechapel murders were at one stage or another thought to be Jack the Ripper. So it's only reasonable that the Torso Mysteries were as well.
Yes.
But
especially when they weren't found in the Thames.
Yeah. But the thing is, there were other Torso murders.
Hang on.
Years before.
Oh, okay.
I see. This reinforces my theory that nobody suddenly starts an intensive couple of year murder series. You get warmed up to these things. You're trying it out. Yeah. You're feeling out the ground.
Are you saying it's connected?
Maybe.
Possibly. I mean, this is some 14, 15 years earlier. In 1873, they found a torso at Battersea. More parts later on, enough to make a whole person. And then the following June in 1874, they found a woman in the river by Putney Bridge.
Gosh.
But there was a similar story again in 1884 and another one in 1902, so years after.
Yeah.
So either someone has a very long career,
sure,
or body parts are just turning up all over the city with alarming regularity.
Which I think is the case, yeah, where it just, I mean, or I would say more so whole bodies would have been turning up all the time, but from people just falling in the river and not being able to swim, or several people being drunk and just falling in and whatever,
cutting themselves to pieces.
Yeah, as they fall,
falling into the river and chopping themselves to pieces as they fell.
I'll cut you to pieces.
Yeah, you'd have to do your legs first.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? You cut your legs off. And then it's the second arm that's the hard one.
I've heard of cutting off your nose to spite your face, but being so angry, such an angry drunk that you dissect yourself, is quite...
And we've all drunk so much that we've swum across the Thames at Richmond Bridge, haven't we?
Well, there is
I mean, that's standard fare.
Yeah, but I don't normally have a cleaver in my hand.
No, true.
I'd do my thighs first.
Just so you could readily identify what they look like when they're separate.
Yeah, because I wouldn't know what those... I'm convinced I wouldn't know what a thigh looks like.
Just look like a big kebab.
Yeah.
Like when they're rotating on the spit or whatever they call it. Yeah.
No onions, please.
Quite right.
Yeah, very small pillow of meat.
I can tell you that the incidences of torsos turning up is not exclusive to London.
Ooh.
In the 1930s, there were a series of torso murders in Cleveland, Ohio.
Gosh.
Cleveland, I've been there. I've been to Cleveland. It's just a shame the dates weren't...
Go Indians.
Like a year later, because then it would have suggested he'd emigrated, but he or she. But no, they're decades later, are they?
Decades later, yeah.
Okay. Go Indians,
Then
yes.
The early ones in London were only 15 years before. So this is either a very long career with some break in the middle.
The last few months, we've been so busy.
Or entirely unrelated crimes.
Yeah, then this man is now at least in his 80s, killing in Cleveland.
Well, I don't know what happened. What washed up?
Well, a number of bodies, mostly the torsos. The rest of the parts weren't found. 1935 to 1938, the cases were unsolved. I can tell you that the man in charge for a period of time from 1935 was head of public safety and therefore in charge of police and fire department, was one Elliot Ness.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Gosh. He of the Untouchables.
Yeah.
Treasury agent. He was at the time head of public safety for Cleveland, and he interviewed Dr. Francis Sweeney, who was a suspect. He interviewed him with a polygraph. He did a lie detector test in the 1930s.
Was this before or after the untouchableness of the mafia or whatever he...
This is after.
After. So you could assume that it could be mafia, or he would assume
Possibly.
Could be mafia connected.
Well, he'd gone from being a treasury agent, he was now a politician.
Okay.
But we've talked briefly, we mentioned about, the potentially dark humour of the killer in where they left the parts. I can tell you that two of the victims, two torsos of victims, were left within view of Elliot Ness's office window.
Oh, right.
So someone's obviously playing a game with him.
Yeah.
God. Come on then, if you think you're smart enough.
Kind of.
Come on, harass me. What are you waiting for?
Right.
We must assure the listener that no pillows were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Fleshy or otherwise.
If Jed was right about this series, would it have been called The Pillow Case?
Yes. It would have. If I had anything
No
to
question.
do
No question about it.
Yeah.
PR and marketing are very important.
Yeah.
For instance, horror.
You've got to get the brand right, haven't you?
Mansion. What was it called? Killer Mansion.
Killer Cottage.
In the last.
The Murder Castle.
Murder Castle. Useless. Get rid of the PR and marketing arm of that newspaper. Useless.
Useless.
No brand management at all there.
But yeah, the pillowcase.
The pillowcase. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Writes itself.
Yeah.
So, very little in popular culture, this being quite so long ago, and obviously in the shadow of the Ripper.
Yes.
I can tell you that Ripper Street, an excellent television series.
Yeah, I really like it, yeah.
Yeah. The opening episode of the first series starts with Detective Inspector Reed taking over as the new inspector of H Division after the Ripper murders, and his first case is that of the body of a disfigured woman being found. Although I can tell you that Reed had already been Inspector H Division since before the Ripper killings even began. But he would have been in charge of the Whitechapel department that would have been investigating these murders.
Yeah. So here's a good tangent connection. My friend who I found the body with,
yes,
he then got married several years later to an actress, and the marriage didn't last very long. They got divorced, and she remarried And she married the actor that is Matthew McFadden, who is the star of Ripper Street.
Who played Detective Inspector Reed.
So I am connected to something.
Something.
So that's not 7 separate. What's it called? 7 degrees of
separation.
Kevin Bacon. That's about 2.
Yeah.
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Yeah, that's the phrase, isn't it? There you go. So that's about 2 degrees of separation.
Wow.
Body, marriage, divorce, remarriage. There you go.
Do you think he tells the same story? So the reason I was cast in this,
no,
because I know this.
No, I don't.
I'm married to someone who knew a guy who saw a body. My wife's ex-husband found a body 30 years ago, and I felt it was my duty to reprise that role, but not scream at the top of my voice when I see anybody. I don't mean anybody. I mean any leave a gap body. That's all for this time. If you want to know more about what we've discussed over the course of this episode, just Google it or something. You can see daily true crime updates on our Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. You can email us or you can support the show with a PayPal donation. And links to all of those are on our website at truecrimediary.co.uk. Don't forget to send us a review or post one in your podcast service if you can, and all 5-star reviews will get a shout out on a future episode. Join us next time when we'll be similarly discussing and digressing on another event in true crime history. Until then, my thanks to Jed and Rue. My name's Mark, and we'll see you on the next date in our True Crime Diary.